We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It's Tuesday, and we've got a guest on the show. That's not surprising, but we've got a guest you've never heard on the Rational Boomer podcast. Actually, you have heard him on the Rational Boomer podcast, but I've talked to him mostly through TikTok lives. And if you've seen the lives, you know this guy. He's been in a bunch of other lives. He has lives himself. So if you're TikTok oriented, you may know who this guy is. But if you don't, you're in for a treat because he knows a lot of shit and he can speak perfect English and not be a dumb fuck like some other people in this particular chat, meaning me. I'm talking, of course, of Trucker T. He is out of the Midwest, like I am. And for those folks, those few folks that maybe don't know who you are, give us some of your background so we know where you're coming from when we head into this.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks, Mike, for having me on. I really appreciate that. Um,
My pleasure.
I yeah, I'm 56, Democrat here. I've been a Democrat for a long time. Uh, Voted for Kamala. As you know, I was in the military back in 1980, 89. Got out in 95. And I've been in the transportation industry for 20 plus years, and that's where the trucker tea comes from.
Okay, gotcha. Gotcha. I
But I
wanted
am,
to bring some. Go ahead.
and I was going to say, and I'm somewhat astute to the politics. I try to, keep up with it as much as I can. So,
Well, I'm here to say, as somebody playing an expert on the internet, you are astute and you do know your shit, and that's why I'm looking forward to talking to you. You always add a lot to to the um, the lives we do. I want to bring one thing up before we get into the politics and all the goofy shit going on. I feel like it's important for me to, well, maybe I feel like it's important to tell this. You heard the story about Old Soul
yes,
and how she went to Los Angeles, was put in ICE detainment, and she went through all that shit. We had a podcast with her, and it's horrific. She may be going back there.
really,
And I told her, dude, you got
don't
a
do
lot of
it.
people around you. Don't do it. Don't do it. She goes, well, I got it all figured out. And I go, and if you don't?
Yeah, you may think you have it figured out, but the way they came around that corner on her, I would hesitate to go back because now you're in the system, right? You're already in their system. Now you're just a glutton for punishment at this point.
Yeah. I don't know when she's gone. And if I did know, I wouldn't tell you or tell anybody. But I told her, I said, look, let's just stay calm and stay around the house and deal with the people you got. You have plenty to deal with. She goes, you sound like my brother. And I said, well, your
Well,
brother's a very bright man because I ended up texting him back and forth while you were in detention. I said, so now it looks like I'm going to get to know your brother a little bit better if things go the wrong way. Hopefully they won't. She's a smart woman too, so I will give her that. If she's
right.
got something figured out, I trust her in that regard. I just I just don't like walking back into shit where there's a problem.
No, and I don't trust the system that much, right? I mean,
No.
the way they acted toward her and everybody else, they're itching to put somebody away. So why put yourself back in that predicament?
Yeah. Well,
I know for
I,
sure as shit I wouldn't go back.
I wouldn't go back. I hope if she does, and like her brother told me, you can tell her whatever you want. She's going to do what she's going to do, and I understand that. And
Right.
God bless her for doing the things she does, because she isn't. She's probably the one person I've met. I grew up in the '60s, so I remember the activists and all those people.
Hmm.
She is probably the one true activist that I know in 2025. People like her don't exist in these days because too many
No.
people are so self-centered and they're only worried about themselves, which is part of the problem we have in this country.
Well, now the activism is all about money, right? So
Yeah.
if they're doing it now, they're getting paid. And if they're not getting paid, we call it a worker with them. What's in it for me? And
Yeah.
if there's nothing in it for you, why should I do it? But she's not like that. She's a true activist. She's always been on the front lines ever since I've known her. So
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I hope she thinks twice about it. If she does, I hope she's careful. And if she ends up needing help, we got a lot of people here to back her up, including her family. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. And I told her keep in contact with me at all times so I know where you're at and what's going on. And if not you, your brother, and hopefully we won't have to deal with that shit again. So we'll see what
Right.
happens. Anyway, Trucker, you're a former veteran, and that's why I thought it would be interesting to have you on too, because of all the things that are going on with the military. I
Hmm.
mean, this guy has absolutely fucked with the military, from national security to the Secretary of the Department of Justice to the parade to whatever military moves he's doing or not doing. As a veteran, what's your attitude about what's going on with Donald Trump? I know you're not a fan.
Right. Well, the first thing I think about is sickening. And a lot of what we forget, or what a lot of people have forgotten about, is that he got sued by the veterans for taking money. I think it was like $2 million from their
Right.
charity. He had to give it back in 2016. So ever since then, I haven't been a fan of him or anything he says about, in regards to veterans, because I know it's not true. And then just today, new news come out when you think it couldn't get any worse, where he says, "Hey, now you doctors don't have to work on Democrats or single people, anybody who's not married or LGBTQ. Where does he get off with that, right? And he tried to sneak it into one of his executive orders, like we wouldn't find it out.
Yeah.
No, no doctor is going to, hopefully anyway, abide by that bullshit. I mean, that's just a terrible human being. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, even if a doctor did that, and you're talking about doctors with the veterans hospitals and stuff, even if a doctor would do that, that would essentially mean we don't have a veterans hospital anymore. Uh,
Exactly.
if you're not going to help everyone and anyone that comes in that happens to be a veteran, well, then the whole thing is fucking pointless. Because then theoretically, a Democrat could get in and say, "Don't work on Republicans." It's just a big pissing contest that's unnecessary.
Well, he's upset because his little parade didn't go as planned, right? So now he's attacking the blue states. We're going to send ICE in heavily. We're going to go for 3,000 now as opposed to 650 a day, and now we're not going to treat Democrats at the hospitals and all of this dumb shit that means absolutely nothing, right? And then he goes to the G7 summit. I know you'll probably speak to this later, but he goes to the G7 summit and completely and utterly embarrasses us.
Yeah, well, yeah, let's talk about that because that was the big story at hand toward the end of the day. Donald Trump goes to the G7, and as I said, um, he bounds off the plane in his baggy suit and his white hat that says "Make America Great Again."
Hmm.
Uh, he puts his foot down on soil in Canada, Banff, I think, in Canada, acting like he owned the place. But they were quick to remind him, "You don't own the place, and you never fucking will, Donnie. That's just the way it's going to be." But he just, like you say, he was an absolute embarrassment. He was a fool while he was there.
He was a complete ass. He was very arrogant. He acted like he owned the place, like you say. No one there respect him. They were all talking about him behind his back. I don't even know if the reason why he's leaving is why he says it is. I think he's leaving because he's fucking embarrassed that everybody was talking shit about him.
Well, yeah, that's a good point, and there's a couple of reasons he may be leaving, and we'll talk about that in a sec. But while he was there, he was giving some unhinged speech, talking shit that had nothing to do with the G7, and Mark Carney, literally
Hmm.
had to cut him off because,
Yeah,
and not because Carney was embarrassed. He thought he was trying to save Donald Trump for looking like a fool, which is hard to do.
it's very hard to do. Well, you see, what's his name? Pierre, whatever, Pierre. I can't pronounce that, but he had
Oh,
to
yeah.
shut the meeting down also, uh,
Oh,
to
did
where
he?
they couldn't.
That's the
Yeah.
Republican.
Well, no, this is the Prime Minister of Canada. He shut down the press conference because Donald Trump was going off the rails. So he
Right.
says, "Me being the being in charge, I have to take command of this, and we have to shut this down." And they pushed all the reporters out of the room, and
Well,
Donnie was still.
yeah, and when Don when he saw that, Donnie kind of tapped him, and I think Donnie thought he was shutting it down because of time. Donnie
Mhm.
didn't even realize it was because he's a dipshit.
Exactly. And then he's standing there doing this. I was like, "What the fuck are you doing, dude?"
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, he was out of place. He was out of sort. He didn't look fresh. Um, Probably didn't smell fresh. Whatever. He just wasn't. It was an
I don't
embarrassment.
I don't think Donnie smelled fresh since the early 70s, probably. But did you hear what he also said? He also reprimanded the people in the G7. He said, we should let Vladimir Putin and China back into the G7. It's not fair. He apparently doesn't remember why Russia isn't in the G7 anymore. It's because 2014 they invade Crimea,
Crimea.
and the G7, G8 at the time said, fuck you, you're done. We don't want you back. So
Yep.
they had to sit and listen to this clown argue about whether or not they should bring in Vladimir Putin. What Donald Trump didn't understand, this wasn't his show. This was Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada's show. But Donald Trump has to be in charge constantly. And these people are serious, intelligent people from these different countries. And they have
Yes.
to be just going, what the? Am I being punked here? This is the
That's
fucking
what it.
US.
That's what it felt like. Like we
Yeah.
had no representation. We had a buffoon there that was representing us. When he gets outside of his bubble, right? There's nobody there that's going to 100% kiss his ass. You know what I'm saying? Inside of his
Mm-hmm.
bubble, everybody's telling him yes, yes, yes. They all love you, sir. Everybody loves you, sir. You're the greatest thing since sliced bread. Your approval ratings are the highest they've ever been, and they're actually the lowest they've ever been. One poll
Yeah.
had him drop 17 points. Another poll had him drop 21 points. So they're not giving him the truth. And then when he comes out into the real world, he's faced with the truth that nobody fucking likes him.
Well, and that's where we get to the point that you brought up before. He's at the G7. He arrives there in the morning, maybe early afternoon, and then tonight he blows the hell out of there.
Hmm.
Now, when I first heard that, I thought the same thing you did. He didn't like that people weren't deferential to him, or maybe he heard people laughing about him, or maybe he got pressed with the wrong questions and he ran away and pouted. That seems reasonable with Donald Trump. Um, But we also hear the story now that Donald Trump had to race back to the United States in D.C. to convene the National Security Council. And it's regarding the Iran Israel war. And he's talking about, we've seen it in some of his Truth Social posts, that he said, everybody better get out of Tehran. And he's
Hmm.
suggesting that the United States is going to bomb Iran. That's a little fucking scary for a guy who called himself the peaceful president, now has three wars potentially going on.
Exactly. Well, and did you see the clip when he was talking about Biden saying that, hey, if I was there, there's no way this would happen, and he's going to start a freaking war with Iran. Well, this guy has only been here for 6 months, and we're getting ready to get into war with Iran, and we didn't under the 4 years of Biden.
Well, part of the reason is because Obama, um, I think it was Obama, maybe it was Biden too, signed a deal with Iran, a nuclear deal.
Hmm.
Donald Trump comes into office and shit cans that nuclear deal.
Yep.
And now we've got to consider bombing them to stop nuclear weapons production. This is just another time when Donald Trump creates a problem and then has to try to fix it. And of course, he's a fuck up, so he won't fix it.
Nope. It's going to be the same fucking problem. And we're going to be into a whole additional war now. So who's to say who's going to help Iran? And then you've got Netanyahu talking about taking out the head of Iran now. So this shit is getting crazy.
Yeah, it is getting crazy, and we could have saved ourselves a lot of trouble by just leaving the deal in place and making sure that they're following the deal. I realize it's Iran and they're problematic and you can't trust them. What I don't understand is Iran is loosely tied to Russia.
Yes.
So how is this going with Donald Trump's relationship with Vladimir Putin? That's got to create a little bit of a strain there.
Well, it has to create a lot of strain. And I don't see how that's going to work. Maybe that's why he mentioned him today. Tried to say, hey, I'm the only one that he talks to. Seven of you guys, and I'm the only one he talks to, or six of you guys. So we should let him back in. I don't know. And then he also tried to throw a little shade on Vladdy. I think it was last week, but it was very, very small shade. I mean, maybe an ant
Yeah.
could have got underneath that shade. So I don't know, Mike. This is going to be something that I don't think we've seen before. Um, and
No,
and I and
no.
I and my only regret is, well, I wouldn't even say regret. My fear is that they don't respect this man enough to hold back. Right? They see what he's doing, and they, calling him Taco, and he's always chickening out. So who's to say they're just not going to drop whatever fucking bomb they want whenever they want?
Um, so I heard somebody on TikTok say something, and I hadn't thought about this either. Um, he's threatening to drop a bomb on the nuclear weapons plants in Iran, in say
Hmm.
Tehran. Okay.
Yep.
What do we know about Donald Trump? He makes a lot of threats, he throws a lot of bullshit, and he doesn't always come through with it. This person was saying, what's worse? Does he go in and bomb these places and get rid of the nuclear weapons? Or does he back away again like Trump chickens out on this situation? And then the word of the president of the United States means fucking nothing because he just says shit.
Yeah, but if he bombs a nuclear installation, that's going to be pretty bad
Yeah.
for a lot of reasons. And I don't know if it's true or not, but they say Scott Jennings and uh, Caitlyn Jenner is held up in a freaking bunker over there. So now you got that to deal with. Um, yeah, it's just there's nothing good coming out of this. Nothing at all.
Well, we were talking about it earlier. We don't have a national security at all because we know what happened with Signalgate. We know the buffoons that run our Defense Department, the FBI, whatever. Um, Iran already hates Donald Trump. We know that there's been some contracts put out on Donald Trump from Iran. Iran has some connections with a lot of terrorists.
Hmm.
Does this then, say we go in and bomb Tehran, or say Donald Trump does that, doesn't that open us up at a point where we're very vulnerable to attacks in this country by terrorists?
Yeah, it does. I don't see how it doesn't. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, there's no way we're not vulnerable at this point. I even saw something today where they were talking about attacking the Florida coast first. I was
Wow.
like, what the hell? I mean, they've
Yeah,
got those
Florida.
types of plans.
Yeah,
But my
but
son is
that might be
there.
a good. That might be a good. Well,
Yeah,
we've got
yeah,
family there too, so
yeah.
get them out of there, and then
And then,
leave
yeah, have
DeSantis
at
there
it.
and shit. Yeah.
Yeah, and have at it. So yeah, I don't know, Mike. This is all discerning, and none of this should happen, right? We shouldn't be in a situation like this in June of 2025 discussing what's better to, blow up a nuclear site or him chickening out, right? There's no way we should be discussing this.
No, you're absolutely right. Especially for a guy who claims Joe Biden got us in all these wars and he never had any wars, which is an absolute lie. But this is the problem you have. He has one strategy, and that is to threaten you, try to be a bully. And if that doesn't
Hmm.
work, he bullies you again. I mean,
Yep.
what's going on with that parade? That parade was an absolute failure. And I'm watching on TikTok and I'm seeing people pull up fake pictures and say, oh, you had 250,000 people. No, he
Bullshit.
didn't. I
No,
said, all you
no.
had to do is look at the live feed. We
Just look at
know
the
what
live
it
feed.
was. We had
Yeah, and
nobody in
then
the VIP section and sparse crowds. Um, Somebody pointed this out. Now on the day on the No Kings Day, right? We had protests all
mm,
over the country, but
mhm.
in my state, we had those two legislators shot. Okay.
Yes,
And we can talk more about that. But at that point, Governor Walz said, don't go out to the No Kings parade. Do not go out. And I said, look, we can't keep backing away and letting these bullies win. We should go
exactly.
out. And there wasn't that many comparatively that went out in Minnesota to the No Kings parade, but it was more than attended or the No Kings protest. There were more in Minnesota after the governor said, don't go out in Minnesota protesting than were at that fucking parade. There
Wow,
was more than the 8,500 that went to that parade.
that's crazy. Yeah,
It is crazy.
we can't allow them to bully us into it. You know what I mean? And I don't know if that. I mean, we all know something was awry with that whole thing.
Yeah.
There's no way all of that went unnoticed by so many people for so long. And then when they caught him, was it last night? Zero
Yeah.
scratches on, no scratches on this guy. Nothing. Just
Right.
like he got out of bed and put the handcuffs on.
Yeah. In talking about that shooting, that whole thing is really, really, really weird. Uh, that's the last thing I thought I would have heard when I woke up that morning. There were this guy, uh, for whatever reason, went out and shot a former Speaker of the House here in Minnesota and her husband. They're
Hmm.
dead. Shot another legislator, a senator, a state senator, and his wife, and their dog, I think, or one of them. He shot the dog, in I think in the Speaker of the House's
Yep.
place, and one of them, I think they may have had a daughter there who just wasn't up front, and kind of got a look at this clown as well as some other people getting it. The whole thing was just so weird. I think he thought he was going to get away with it completely and just go off into the darkness. But of course, he fucks it up. Police catch up with him before he leaves the last house. But what's interesting about this is he visited two other houses as
Yes, he
well as the
did.
two where he shot people, and they weren't home. The list, the list of people that he wanted to kill included um, uh, Amy Klobuchar,
Hmm.
a U.S. senator from Minnesota, and Tina Smith, a U.S. senator from Minnesota. That was all kinds of fucked up. This
I thought he
guy,
heard Tim Walsh was on that list also.
you, I wouldn't doubt it. I
Yeah.
wouldn't doubt it. But then they come out and they try to say, oh, he worked for Tim Walz and he's a Democrat. Well, he's not. He's a
No.
registered Republican, as his friend told us. He's a Trump
Hmm.
supporter. But the real pivot point here, I think, about him and what kind of triggered him was he was a rabid anti abortionist.
Yes.
And all of these people kind of had some history in voting for pro choice or supporting pro choice. That's what this was about. He's a crazy, radical, religious right motherfucker. And
Hmm.
he just went off the fucking ledge.
Yeah, he did. And here's the sad part about it. Now that they caught him and he's alive and all that business, now he can go inside the jail and tell people how he got away with it and how he planned it out and how to do it so they can do it, right? Because his plan was so meticulous
Yeah.
that he had to have been planning this for a long time. So, and I kind of listened to the trial a little bit, not trial, but some of the
The
people
hearing.
talking about it, the hearing,
Yeah.
and they were upset because he didn't get charged with first degree murder. And they said, well,
Well,
second degree is better in this case because it comes with, it has to be premeditated. And they said everything that this guy did was premeditated, and that will give him life in prison without parole.
well, yeah, and I also heard that it was the easiest to charge with them before they knew everything, but
Got
they
you.
will likely upgrade it to a first degree murder once they verify all this stuff as far as the planning it out and everything. Good news too, it's going to be a state crime.
Yes. No pardon on
So
that.
Donald Trump, no pardons on that shit.
Mm-mm.
Walls ain't gonna pardon him, that's for fucking
No,
sure.
absolutely. Especially if his name is on that fucking list. I wouldn't.
Well, and there's other parts of this that are really weird. Like, for example, his wife was picked up. I think she was brought in at the same time he was brought in too again. But she was up in Onamio, which is in northern Minnesota, north central Minnesota, and she had money, she had passports, and she had a gun.
Yeah,
Uh,
50K on her.
50,000?
50,000 is what they said she had.
How did you think she's going to get into Canada? Fuck, they don't let you in if you have a DUI.
Let alone $50,000 in a gun. Come on.
Yeah,
You,
that's
you,
that's
I
just
mean, what
that's
was she
just
going to
crazy.
ditch the gun at before she got to Canada? When she's going to throw it out the window when she got close to the border? You know what I mean?
Apparently.
Yeah.
Well, this guy's kind of a weirdo too, in the sense that he was on a workforce board, which ain't nothing. It's, he may have been appointed by the governor at some point, but that's just a pile of papers he signs off on when somebody else has decided whether this guy should be on. And he had no
Exactly.
control, no power. He didn't have direct contact with Tim Walz. All of that is bullshit. I've been on park boards and I've been on planning commissions. It's the same thing.
It's the
You know,
same
you
thing.
just you just go on and serve your time and do some good, hopefully. But this guy had all kinds of things. If you listen to what he was about, They said he was a PhD. Don't know if that's true. He appears to be a preacher because there were video of him preaching, and he's one of these fire and brimstone and not religious in the least, even though he claims to be. He claimed to be working with funeral services and extracting eyeballs
Mm.
from bodies. What the fuck is why the fuck would you do that? And then he claimed to own a security company, but his best friend pointed out, well, it wasn't really a company. He started it, but he had no clients. He bought a couple of cars and an outfit, but he didn't really have a security company. This
Oh.
guy is a total mess. And what some people have suggested, he's part of the religious sects that, women are second class citizen and they
Hmm.
support the husband no matter what he does and he can do pretty much whatever he wants. That sounds like this was. Because I got to tell you, if I lived at home with my wife here and I said, honey, I got an apartment in a bad part of town and I'm just going to hang out with some roommates 2 days a week, she might have some questions about that.
Yeah, it's not happening. No, it's not happening at all. Not 2 days a week, not 2 minutes a day. I mean, it's just not going to happen. They're
Yeah.
into some weird shit, and
Yeah.
and hopefully, I never even figure out what it is. I don't want to know. Every time we come across these stories, kind of like Mike Johnson, I heard that he deals with a pastor and walks around in underwear and all of that bullshit. And it's like, what in the hell is going on
Yeah.
with
Well,
what?
well, didn't Mike Johnson say he has an app where both he and his son can observe their porn intake?
Yes, to make
God,
sure that they're not overreaching. You know what I mean? Overdoing it, I guess. Jesus Christ.
wow,
Yeah,
wow. I
Mike, I don't get it, man. Whatever happened to just like common decency? Remember back in the old days when me mom would just put a fucking cherry pie in the window and let it cool off. And if you wanted a slice, get your fucking slice and go about your business, right?
yeah.
Uh, those days are gone. Now you've got men wearing skirts and dresses and Mike Johnson with ruffle underwear, and it's too much.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, men can wear whatever they want. However,
Yeah, give me
if
the
you go
however.
around, if you wear that shit and you're trying to marginalize people that are truly transgender, that's where the problem is.
That's
It's
my
it's
point.
these guys. It's these guys that want to hurt gay or the LGBTQ. They want to do it, but
Community.
that's their community. They just won't own up to it. That's what I
That's
have
my
a
point.
problem with. I don't
Yeah,
care about what anybody's sexual activity is, but if you're trying to kick your own people's ass, I got to question you a little bit.
exactly. And that's my entire point because this whole administration, from the top to the bottom, they want to get rid of all of that and all the wokeness and all that. But each and every one of them are the exact same. And I don't understand it. You can't play the fence on both sides. You know what
No,
I
no,
mean?
no.
You can't do it. You got to stand for something or you will fall for anything. And these guys are just falling all over the place, left and right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
And we're
I
the
told some.
ones that are picking up the pieces for this stuff.
Well, that's the whole point. When this is all said and done, there's going to be a lot of pieces to pick up, and we're going to be some busy motherfuckers because the messes they've made. That's my only concern is the longer they continue to be able to do this sort of thing, the more work we're going to have to put in after it's all said and done because it will need to be done.
Mike, I asked somebody the other day, I'm like, how long do you think after this administration is over with, do you think it'll take before we get back to normalcy? And he says, my friend, you won't be around that long. And I was like, holy shit, is it that bad?
The thing about it is when you say normal, when people say normal, they think, when will it get back to the way it was before Donald Trump? And I'm here to say it won't, because when we get to
Yeah,
the other side, it'll be a new normal. Now, I
gotcha.
will say this when we've had problems in our country, typically we go through rough patches or tough times, like even the 60s were rough. What often happens is we come out the other side. We never get back to where we were. We come out the other side, but because of what we went through, sometimes we do end up even better than where
Right.
we were beforehand. I mean, it's a learning process. But my point is we got to fucking get to the other side pretty quick. And it
Yeah.
doesn't look like the Republicans are ready to let us get there.
No, it's not. When you got people like Mike Johnson, when he's blatantly asked, "Hey, so you guys were upset when
Hunter Biden.
Hunter Biden and his dad, you say that they were making money off of their name and blah blah blah," and he says, "Well, look at the Trump Foundation. They've got watches, they've got shoes, they've got all of this stuff." And he says, "Well, I'm not that type of lawyer. I don't really get into that kind of litigation, so I'm not really
Oh,
sure how it goes. We've got people for that." It's like, give me a fucking break, bro.
that's the typical answer. I hadn't heard that. That's not my expertise. That's
Yes,
somebody else that should decide that. No, you should have a thought. You're the fucking Speaker of the House.
you're the
You should
Speaker of the House.
and claim to be a constitutional expert. You know the Constitution, you see the activity. What's your opinion? But he won't answer it because he's a coward,
Mhm.
pussy ass bitch.
That's exactly what he is. I just saw it today, and he was like, "Well, that's just we've got people in the judicial branch that handle that. That's not my expertise." He said, "I
You
know
know,
what happens in the House, but other than that, I'm not too concerned." Like whatever, bro.
yeah, it's absolutely uh, frustrating watching what happens every day. We have somebody shoot legislators, and you think, God, how could it get worse than this? Then we hear he's going to bomb Iran, or he's just bluffing. Who knows what the fuck he's doing? But it does literally get worse every day, every
Sure does.
possible day. I got to tell you, I felt pretty good on Saturday when we had
Hmm.
this huge turnout for the No Kings protest,
Yep.
the largest protest in the history of this country. And every one of those motherfuckers in those protests hate Donald Trump and think he's an asshole. That's a
Yes.
lot of people. Some
Yeah.
people say 5 million, some people say 10 million.
Well, hell, 1 million is enough, right?
Yeah,
I saw somebody had a sign that says, "Hey, Donald, uh, we're not paid to be here. We hate you for free." You know what I mean? We had like I don't know how much you know about Indiana, but it's red.
right.
And
Yeah.
we had cities like Angola, Indiana, Ligonier, Indiana, Fort Wayne, Michigan City, South Bend of all fucking places, Elkhart, Goshen, Syracuse. All of these little sundown towns are out in force, fucking protesting. And I about shit a brick when I saw that. I
Protesting
could,
against Trump.
yes, I could not believe that. And it's been on the
Well,
news for the last 4 days, and all you hear is, "Oh, what the fuck are they doing that for? You people need to get over it," because people are fucking fed up, bro. That's why.
and they're
Even
suffering and they're struggling. You got
right,
farmers in Indiana. I bet you they're not having fun.
I got a farmer in my backyard. You know what I mean? As soon as my property ends, there's soybeans or corn, depending on what he's doing for that year. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So yeah, but uh, I could not believe the turnout we had. I was amazed, especially Angola and Argus. Hell no. Like, I don't even go to Argus, Mike, and this is not no racial bullshit or whatever. I don't even go to Argus in its daytime on sales calls or anything. I just skip that fucking place. You know what I mean? But they were out protesting. I might go back there now. Even Warsaw, where the Klan, one of their headquarters is in Warsaw, Indiana. They were out there protesting. Shit's bad.
How is it for a man of color to live in Indiana, knowing that it's that red and knowing that the Republicans are flat out fucking racist? I mean, you're a bigger guy, so I'm sure nobody really fucks with you, but just what you see and how people of color are treated in Indiana. I don't go there, so I don't know.
Well, I can tell you, it would surprise you how decent the majority are, right? If you're minding your business and you're not causing a ruckus, they don't give two shits who you are, what color you are, whatever, because they see enough of us. They see enough of Hispanics. But if you're in there causing a ruckus and doing dumb shit, or going to the wrong place, and I shouldn't have
Right.
to say that, like Pike's Bar in Fort Wayne, there's no reason that guy should have been in a fucking bar with Hell's Angels. We've got a Hell's Angel bar right here on Western Avenue. And I can guarantee you, not one African American has been in that fucking bar. Why?
Wow.
Why the fuck am I going in there with a
Yeah.
bunch of drunk motorcycle guys? We've got our own motorcycle club. Go on over there if you want a beer in a motorcycle bar. Stay away from those places. And they say, well, this is America. You should be able to go wherever you want. I get it. But everything is not for everybody. And that guy down in Fort Wayne should have never been in that fucking bar. That's just my opinion.
Tell me the story because I'm not sure I know the story of what happened.
Oh, you don't know a story about this Pike's Pub in Fort Wayne, Indiana? 3 weekends ago, he got off work. He decided to get a beer at the bar. And typically the bar is okay, but that particular day they had the outlaw biker gang in there. And they said that he didn't want to pay his tab. He was telling them that there was an issue with his tab. He said, I've got the money. I didn't have this much, or whatever the situation was. The biker group decided to gang up on him and
Wow.
telling him, pay your tab, motherfucker, pay your tab, motherfucker, all of this shit, right? And the guy was like, look, y'all get away from me. And then out of nowhere, you see a punch. Boom. One of them punched him, and then the rest of them jumped him. And then all you hear is, kick that end's ass, kick that end's ass, beat the shit out of that end. And they're just throwing tables and chairs at him. And the whole city of Fort Wayne showed up the next day to protest that. So it made national news. Now he's got lawyers involved, and the city is, involved. The mayor got involved. They arrested two of the bikers so far. They got four more to go. Uh, but shit like that you'll get into. But like if I go out, say to the mall, not to the mall, but if I'm getting gas and a guy pull up beside me in a big ass dually with truck flags and all that shit on it, he's not going to say nothing to you unless you fuck with him. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then it's on. And then you got some of them that might say something, hey, you're in the wrong side of town, boy. And then you've got to figure out, okay, is this worth the fight today or not? You know what I mean? Like, do I want to
Yeah.
climb that mountain today, or do I just want to let him be ignorant and go about my business? So,
Yeah.
and I haven't ran across any of that except for one time I was in Warsaw, Indiana on a sales call. And the Klan was standing there at the stoplight handing out cards. And he says, you better hope that light turns fast. And I looked at him, I said, I'm not worried about the light. And I just took off. You know what I mean? Fuck that light. I'll take the ticket over what I'm gonna get with this Yahoo. But
I
that was
I
back in
had
2009.
I had an experience just yesterday that I haven't had in a long time. When I was
Hmm.
younger, I was in good shape. I played sports, I lifted weights, and uh, I didn't have too many people fucking with me. And if I did, I knew what it meant to get in a fight. I'd been in my share of fights. Um, but my wife and I were looking for something to do. I lost your face there. Oh, there you go.
No, there. Yep.
Um, but my wife and I go to this casino. Now, this casino is right across the border from from Minnesota to Iowa. So it's
Hmm.
like 5 miles from the border. And we've been there before. Don't know why we went down there. It was pretty boring anyway. So I'm there, and my wife and I are going to meet up, and we're going to leave. Okay. So I'm walking down the row, minding my own fucking business,
Hmm.
and there's this guy. He's older than me. He's got to be 70, 75 maybe. And he looks like an old farmer. He's walking bow-legged. He looks like he's not very stable. And he wants to cut in front of me. And I'm thinking to myself, fuck you. I'm walking my straight line. I'm just keep
Yep.
walking. Go ahead. So the guy comes up and he literally hits me with his shoulder intentionally.
Huh.
He hits me with the shoulder. And discretion's oftentimes the better part of valor, but I
Hmm.
don't always remember that.
Right.
So here I am. So here I am. He does that to me. I go, fuck you. So I turn around and just nudge him by the shoulder. I go, do that again, motherfucker. I'm going to put you on your back. And then if I find out you voted for Trump, I'm going to kick you in the fucking head. And I go, wow, that was a little aggressive even for me. But it just pissed me off because he intentionally did that to me. And
Well, yeah.
the guy just got up and or got away from me and started walking away. He didn't say anything because he wasn't brave anymore. And there was this young black man sitting there with his girlfriend. I said, I bet you were dying to see an old man beat the fuck out of an older man. He says, yeah, but you would have had him.
Yeah, definitely you would have had him because you had more
Well, this
piss and vigor in
well, and this guy was probably going to find his walker anyway. I just couldn't believe the nerve of this motherfucker
Well,
to
he's
do that on
entitled.
purpose because I pissed him off somehow. Fuck you.
He's entitled, Mike, and those older ones they are, right? I'm from Helena,
Yeah.
Arkansas, so I get it. And with me being from Helena, Arkansas, you can almost tell when it's coming. You know what I mean? Like people up here, with the racism and all that, you can feel it coming. There's a cloud in the room when somebody's going to say something that's fucked up, or you can just feel when the situation is bad, and you just get out the situation. You know what I mean? You avoid the situation and you move on, and that's for both sides. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, yeah, when it comes to the physical part of it, I'm 65 years old. Fighting is probably not on my bingo card these days.
I don't know.
I'm
You would
not
have
going to
kicked his
do that.
ass, Mike.
I would have kicked his ass, but he was old and decrepit, just my kind of opponent. Um, but but when it comes to people saying some shit, my family, we go to family things, and you might have a Republican there or a Trump-la-fuck, and they may or may not know what I do on the internet, and they feel compelled to come up and try to show me up. And I always tell my wife, I said, I'm never going to start talking about politics in a family thing. However, if someone says some dumb shit to me, I can't help myself. I got to
Oh,
straighten
it's
this
on.
motherfucker out. It's my duty.
Yeah,
And
it's on.
so somebody, I can just see it in the eyes of my family too. When somebody walks up and says something to me, they go, "Oh fuck, here we go."
Here we go.
And when it's all said and done, I talk just like this. I don't yell and scream. I'm not that kind of guy. But they always go to, "Well, I can't talk to you because you're unhinged." I said, "You shouldn't have brought it, man."
Shouldn't have brought
What's
it.
Jasmine Crockett? What's Jasmine Crockett always say? If you don't want none, don't bring none.
Don't bring it. Don't start none. It won't be none. I mean, it's just simple. You know,
Yeah.
the easiest thing to do right now is to just stay in your lane. Leave people the fuck alone. Right? In the military, they taught us there's two things you don't talk about. The drill instructor told me once. Well, there's three. He says. He said, "You never talk about politics. You don't talk about religion. And if I ever hear you mention my wife's name, I'm fucking you up." So those were his three things. And we were like, "Sir, we don't know who your wife is."
Right.
So his thing was, whatever her name is, you better not say it on accident, or he's smoking you.
Well, given your military background, we talked about this on the live too. Um, that whole parade thing that put the military in a bad spot because it was an order that wasn't illegal, so they had to do it.
Yep.
But there's some talk about the way they marched and the way they did things that may have been kind of a silent protest. Did you get,
Oh,
as a veteran, did you get that indication that that's what was going on?
that was 100% what that was. It was a silent protest. And I don't know if you've seen any of the videos, but they
Yeah.
actually said that that's what they were doing. So they finally came out and said it. I saw one video. The guy made it. If I find it, I'll send it to you. But he says, "Hey, we got sent here a week ahead of time, and we didn't practice shit. This is what we were doing. Some of them were playing hacky sacks. Some of them were they were wrestling in the corridor, throwing Cheetos at each other, just anything they could do except for take this shit for real. You know what I mean? So that's why it
And
looked sloppy.
and do you think that was from the officers down or just the rank and file?
No, that was enlisted. There's no way an officer would condone that, right? That was us saying, this is what we're going to do. And you better get in line or we're going to have a sock party for your ass at the end of the day. So that's what that was. So you
And
remember those?
a sock party is a sock with a bar of soap in it, right?
You goddamn right. And this time I think we would have put two or three of them in there for good measure.
Well, let me ask you this then. If the officers wouldn't condone something like this, do these rank and file folks that did it, the enlisted people that did it, are they in trouble now when they go back to their regular lives? Do the officers take them to task?
No, because in military we have what we call an amnesty period, right? And we can declare amnesty at any point, meaning whatever happens in this room right now, You say it with your full chest and be 100% about it, and you won't get in trouble. There's no trouble to be had after this. If you're claiming this to be amnesty, you can call me a bitch as a drill instructor. I'll let you go. You can tell me you don't want to march in this dumbass fucking parade. Nothing's going to happen. But all the words stay in this room. So all the
Okay.
words that were told or said stayed in that room. And then when they got outside, everybody knew what to do. And they had an amnesty period. So when they got back, they were like, this is what it is.
And I have a feeling the officers, while they may not condone it, in their heads are going, I get it, man. Fuck it.
Yeah. And there's an old saying, light them if you got them, right? Smoke them if you got them. And you're not supposed to have cigarettes in the military. But sometimes they'll just come out of the blue. Hey, light it if you got it, but it don't go across that line. You know what I'm saying? So there's
Right.
always a way of doing something or getting something out of somebody without saying it, because they all know that this is fucked up.
Yeah.
You know. And have you noticed the amount of? I don't know if you're on TikTok as much as I am, but
Yeah.
the amount of videos that came out on how to properly march today just pretty much shows the tale. Marines said, "Hey, this is how you do it." Army said, "This is how it's done," and none of them did it.
Well, we're probably on different algorithms because what I get mostly is Aaron Parnas, Will, and babies with dogs. That's pretty much what I get.
No, I get it all. I got a lot of the military. I get a lot of Will. Whether I see it or not, he'll push it to me directly, so I don't have a
Yeah.
choice but to see it. And I get a ton of Aaron Parnas, and then I get my military stuff because I that's all I do. I kind of get on and watch it.
You know
And
what I like about what I like about Aaron Parnas is he just gives me the facts and then I can dig out what I want to dig out. I don't have
from
to
there,
listen to some fucking show to get a little point.
right? And you don't have to wait for the commercial and all that bullshit, and they teasing you till the end of the show and all of that. You can just
Yeah.
get it and move on. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
So what people are doing now, Mike, and this is insane. And they said there's no way we're going to get an extension on TikTok now because they're making the squeaky tank their ringtone. It's
I
crazy.
love that. What are the odds you'd have
Sorry.
a squeaky tank in a parade? You
Uh,
were talking about that. You said that's not
th-
likely.
there, you got a better chance of getting struck by lightning. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, there's absolutely no way in hell. Think about that. You're checking my weapon with a white glove. You're making sure I got my mustache and everything is tight. My shoes, my shirt, my creases, everything is fucking perfect just to march around base.
Right.
But now you're going to put me in front of the president of the United States and I got a squeaky fucking tank? There's no way in hell. There's absolutely no way. I'm sorry. There would have been
And,
so much grease coming out of that fucker.
and if there's any question as to how many people and how well that parade went, all you had to do was look at the video of Donald Trump's face. He either looked like he shit his pants or he was ready to cry, or a combination thereof.
I think he shit his pants and start crying because
Yeah, I
maybe
think so
maybe
too.
maybe it was full and it didn't have anywhere to go but like up his back or some shit like that. You know what I mean?
The reason I laugh at that, uh, my daughter-in-law just had a baby a couple weeks ago, so I got a new
Hmm.
grandson. And I said to her,
Well, congratulations.
thank you. She'd never had a baby before, and she's been kind of a businesswoman and the whole baby thing. She didn't even really babysit when she was younger.
Hmm.
And I said to her, I said, how do you feel about bodily fluids and excretions from bodies? She goes, oh, I can't stand that. And I said, well, I'm just going to tell you something. Your husband and his brother, when they were babies, we'd put them in bed in their little onesies and their little diapers. And somehow, some way, we would wake up in the morning and these kids would have poop from the neck to the knees. I don't know what the fuck they did, but be prepared for that because he's coming directly from my son. He's probably going to do the same thing,
Just
and
got to
you're
throw
going to
the
have
whole
to
baby
figure that
out.
shit out. Yeah,
I
just
just throw the whole
throw him in the bathtub. Yeah,
done.
just
Yep.
fuck it.
Put him in the tub and let him swim.
Yeah. Pretty much is what you got to do. It's just disgusting. It's having babies. Babies are cute as hell, but they are kind of disgusting at times, throwing up on you, sneezing on you. I mean, as it is, I got a 5-year-old granddaughter who I absolutely adore. Remember when I had the cold? Still
Yeah,
kind of got it a little bit. You know how I got that cold?
from her.
Be- because my granddaughter insisted on kissing me on the lips with a snotty nose and a cough.
And you
And I'm
took it like a
saying,
champ.
I took it like a champ. That's what you got to do when
That's
you're a
what you got to
grandpa.
do. Like, fuck it. Yeah. So think about this, Mike. You ever see those movies where they said, if you don't get this right, you will be on a first class flight to Greenland changing light bulbs with Eskimos, how the
Yeah.
military do. So whoever didn't put the grease on that tank should be on his way to Greenland changing light bulbs with Eskimos right now. And if they're not, they didn't give two shits.
Yeah. 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 So do you think Donald Trump then goes to Pete Hegseth, who then goes to, because they were obviously, I mean, even Pete Hegseth, his head was down and he looked pretty grim too. None of these people could be too pleased by the way it happened. Not only the turnout, just the whole thing was fucking boring.
I don't think so, Mike, because you know what? He thinks it was great. He don't know the difference. He never served. You know what I mean? Pete Hegseth was probably fucking drunk. He had his head down the whole time. They
True.
thought it was amazing. You know, hey, 250,000 people showed up. We had a ball. You
Yeah.
know, and now he's blaming climate change on news reporters now, or some stupid shit I heard. It was so dumb. I stopped even listening to it. He was saying,
Yeah.
"Well, if you're saying it's 100% chance of rain." And it didn't rain. So what is that telling me? That climate is changing. And I'm like, okay, I just stopped listening to whatever the fuck I thought I was hearing, and I moved on because I didn't want to become any dumber.
Yeah. My wife will say to me sometimes, when something happens, she'll say, let's turn on Fox and see what they're saying. I go, I can't even listen to that shit
Nope.
because I want so bad to grab him by the throat and say, dumb fuck. So whenever I see Donald Trump interviewed or anything else, I get so frustrated because there are obvious questions to ask. And I know they'd be hard questions. And I know he would sputter and spit and he would get angry and stuff. But those questions have to be asked. If they were asked in 2015, Donald Trump would have been exposed for the asshole, an idiot that he is, and he would have never been president. That's why I get so angry with the media. It's just they shit the bed every time they have an opportunity.
Well, you know what I think, Mike, and I've been telling my wife this, and anybody that will listen to me. I think so many of them have their hand in the cookie jar
Oh
that
yeah.
they don't want to get exposed. You know what I mean? So they have to do everything. That's one thing that Donald Trump is good at. He is good at manipulating. He's a New Yorker through and through. He will throw a couple dollars at you and now you're in my pocket. And then he'll extort the shit out of you. And
Yeah.
the people that he's extorting, they're not gangsters. They're like Mike Johnson. You know what I mean? If I say, Mike, I'm going to ruin you, Mike doesn't want his life taken away. Not as far as death, but as
Yeah.
far as the way he's living, the cars and the amenities and all of that. They're not used to being without that stuff. And then
Right.
the humiliation that comes along with that. And I'm sure there was some really bad shit that went down that, they can't tell assault.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, but this is prime bullying,
Hmm.
he goes to George Stephanopoulos says something bad about Donald Trump. He sues them. No way he can win. And instead of fighting it, ABC just hands him some money, just caves
Yeah,
to him. Uh, 60 Minutes, literally a paragon of journalism, all of my life, all of your life. If you could
Mike
trust
Walsh.
something, you could trust that 60 Minutes would be honest and straightforward. Now we can't do this. So many people have caved to him. We've got the legal firms that have caved to him, but
Hmm.
they fucked around and found out because a lot of their clients said, fuck you, we don't want people that aren't going to fight. And a lot of the people who work for them said, fuck it, we're going to go to the people that do fight. So people are suffering some consequences because they kowtow to this bully. And you and I
Yep.
both know the only way to beat a bully, slap the fucking taste out of his mouth and knock him on his ass.
Just punch him dead in
But
his nose.
yeah, and we've got to have somebody that's willing and capable to do that. I just don't know who that is.
So let me ask you this, and that's a great question. Where the hell is Hakeem Jeffries? I haven't heard from him in almost a month.
Yeah. Well, he talked a little bit after which time, but his pro. I'm disappointed in Hakeem Jeffries
That's
because
my
when I
whole
first
thing.
saw him,
Yeah.
I really liked him. I thought he would be a tough. He's a good orator. He's smart. He knows how to play the game to a certain extent. But to me, Hakeem Jeffries is a lot like Tim Walz. And I don't mean as far as personality.
Right.
It means like somebody's got reins on him and they pull him back and he won't go any farther than that.
I
And that's
got
what
you.
happened with Tim Walz when he was running with Kamala. If they
Hmm.
let him be Tim Walz, you probably would have done better. And at the same time, if the Biden administration had let Kamala just be Kamala, it would have been a lot better. And Pelosi and whoever else has the reins on Hakeem, he's just bought into it and he will only go so far. He's coming off just like the establishment politicians, and people don't like that shit.
True. Well, look what happened with Trump, right? He's off the fucking rails, and they love his dumb ass. They just
Yeah.
love him, and they think we're the dumb ones.
Yeah.
You ought to see some of the Facebook comments, and they all have the same talking points. Well, this is what I voted for. This is what I voted for. You know what I mean? And then in the same breath, they're upset because he's bringing them back, um, but then not letting some go, keeping some. Not this whole. It's so confusing. And I think you had a great point yesterday. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, but the people
I
that
have them
he's
every
bringing.
day. I have them every fucking day. So
Well, then it was
pick
today.
one.
Yeah. Well, you, well, you said that the people that he's allowing to stay in the country, they don't just be in the farms. They go to the malls, they go to the grocery
Right.
store, and all these other places where they're getting them from. So it doesn't really matter.
No, it doesn't matter. That's exactly right. He says we're going to lay out the farms and the hotels and stuff. And so all these people aren't in the farms and the hotels all day. They're in the fucking
No,
grocery stores. They're in the schools. They're in the churches. They can be picked up out of there. So the question is it about helping the people or just keeping the companies, the businesses hands clean, the hotels and the farmers? Are they okay with him doing this as long as they don't come fuck with their own operations? I don't know.
I didn't think about that, Mike. That's a good point. You know what I mean? Because the weight of the federal government would have to come down on them if they continue to hire these illegal immigrants, right? Um,
Right.
because we got the e-verify system that's supposed to verify that, hey, this person is who he said he was or who she says she was, and she's legal and blah blah blah. But somehow they get around it. And I I don't know if told you guys this on your show or maybe it was on another show, but when they were putting up the fences and all that shit for his dumbass parade,
Yeah.
they had Hispanics putting up the fence. Stupid fuckers. I'm like, you can't make this up. In Washington, D.C., they're on the microphones or walkie talkies talking in Spanish back and forth as they're building the parade route. And I'm like, you got to be shitting me. They
Well, you were talking about his grifting, and I don't know if you heard about this, but Donald Trump Jr. came out with the latest grift. I don't know if you heard this. The latest
selling.
grift is they're going to have their own cell phone and cell phone service. Now, they are made in China. The cell phones are made in China, but eventually, and you can trust them when they say this, they mean that shit. They're eventually going to be made in America. So these fuckers are selling cell phone service. What are we? What is I think Donald Trump Jr.'s son thinks he can be the next fucking Ryan Reynolds. Sorry, that's not going to
No,
happen.
not even close. Okay, so everything that see, and that's more gaslighting because everything
Yeah.
that I heard him say was that, and the beauty of this is that it's made in America. The beauty of this is all American. This is all American. Maybe down the road, you know what I mean? I didn't know that they were made in China because he did so much gaslighting about it being made in the United States. I assumed, which they always say you never do, right? That everything was made here for, and then they're $49 a month or whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't have one for free. I
No.
wouldn't even let my dog chew on it as a toy.
No. Well, see, the thing about it is there is no cell phone that's completely made in America. It does not exist. And
No,
he's in the process right now of trying to punish Apple and Samsung and all these people that have these phones that are made in China. So he's punishing them now and saying, hey, but I got a phone still made in China, but we're working on it. Eventually, it'll be made in America. And we know Donald Trump's a pathological liar, so we know that's
It,
bullshit.
you
He
know
says
what,
a lot of
Mike?
stuff.
There's, yeah, and that phone will probably end up having spyware issues, firmware issues. Everybody on his bank accounts frozen. It's going to be a fucking mess. Just like
Yeah.
his shoes, his water, his steaks, his plane. I mean, you name it. It's all bad. There's nothing good comes out of that guy.
Do you get the sense? I've asked a lot of people this because I'm getting this sense, and maybe I'm a Pollyanna here. I get the sense that so many things are going badly for Donald Trump and the parade and the huge protest and stuff. I hope we're turning a corner here. The tide is changing a little bit. The days when Donald Trump got away with everything and won all the time, even when he shouldn't, it seems like those days are kind of behind us now because he's losing
Hmm.
constantly. He has a big event, a campaign rally, and he gets a bunch of dumb fucks there. Well, now he has a parade, nobody shows up. He's going to courts, he loses every fucking time. The courts came out yesterday and said this whole thing about him canceling funding to NIH
Hmm.
programs, grants.
Yep. Those are
He
back.
stopped that dead in the tracks. And he also said this is, in essence, racial discrimination.
Yes.
I mean, the judge said that. So he
Yeah.
was
And
pretty hardcore about this.
yeah, no, I saw that. It was a 40-page letter that he wrote to Trump, basically saying, "Go fuck yourself. This is not wokeism or any of that bullcrap that you tried to label us as. This is what it is, discrimination, and you've got to give those grants back immediately." And he didn't like that, so he's appealing it, of course. Kind
Oh,
of
of
like with the
course, he's a
job
good.
with the Job Corps and everything else, he appeals and loses. Um,
Well, that's better than what I thought he might do. He'd read the first line and say, "We won. We fucking won." That's what he would do too.
I'm sure he probably did, and his lawyers just appealed it and didn't tell him that they were appealing it.
And
Um,
don't you get that impression too that Donald Trump seems to be caught like a deer in the headlights when people ask him certain questions, like about the No Kings protest?
mhm.
That's what you're saying. I don't necessarily believe that. I think people around him are just terrified to tell him anything that he doesn't want to hear, and
Yep.
the fucker is just uninformed.
Here's how he has a tail. When he really doesn't know, he leans in. What was that? You know what I mean? He does it every
Yeah.
single time, and that's when they really didn't tell him. And then he leans back with a scowl on his face. So he leans in to get to process the information. Then once he gets it, he doesn't like it. Then he scowls and he gives you a short, quick answer. Then he goes back in the room and throws a fucking fit.
Well, I mean, he's easy to read, like with the parade and with the protests. Immediately afterwards, he says, "We're going hard on the blue states. We're going to send ICE in there. We're going to do this. We're going to do that." And this was a guy who's obviously butthurt, and he's doing what a narcissist does. I got to strike back. I got to
Right.
strike fear into these fuckers, which doesn't work. I'm going to go to Chicago. I'm going to go to New York. I'm going to go to California. Well, you're already in California. And then I hear him talking about we might even go to Compton.
Yeah, right.
Compton.
He's full of
I t-
shit.
I'll tell you a story about Compton. I've only been there once in my life.
I've never
I
been
was,
there.
well, I didn't intend to be there. I I was going to Los Angeles for the first time with my brother and this
Hmm.
musician I represented, a black musician from Minneapolis. We're in the car, we're driving down the highways, and of course, Los Angeles is hard to figure out if you've never fucking been there. And my brother and I in the front seat, the kid, the African American kid, the musician's in the back, and he's sitting there not saying anything. And we get off on this road and we're driving down this street. And he starts saying, "Oh shit." I go, "What?" He goes, "Oh shit, get out of here." And I go, "What's the problem?" And he says, "There's way too many black people around here."
He could
I
feel it in
go,
his stomach.
and I go, "So what?" He goes, "So
He's
what?
like,
We're in
he's like,
fucking Compton. Get out of here. I go, what
Get
are
the
you worried about? You're black. He says, well, they're going to kill you for sure. And they'll
yeah, and
probably kill me because I'm with you. So we
exactly.
got the fuck out of there quickly.
Yeah, that's one. See, that goes back to what I told you earlier. You can just kind of feel it, no matter what color it is. You can feel when it's getting ready to go down, and it's up to you if you want to engage or not. And that dude that you were with was smart as shit because he was like, "Hey, man, I told you 3 times already. we got to turn this bitch around. I'm not gonna tell you four because I'm just gonna leave you here."
Yeah, that's about the
So
best thing he could have done is got out of the car and get as far away from us. But he was a kind of a big bulky kid, but he was kind of a teddy bear. I don't know
right,
if he would have lasted that long in the
no, he
in
wouldn't have.
that area. We're talking
No,
about a different type of a different breed of people there.
this was serious. You know what I heard the other day that I thought was very interesting, and this goes back to Trump, and they were saying, okay, how do you think we're going to get rid of him? And they said it won't be by any evil arbitrary thing, right? It won't be by the Democrats getting him out. It's going to be his own people.
Oh
And
yeah,
they said because they're going to get so sick and tired of him losing and them losing and losing everything that he loses, right? Which is a lot of losses. That they're just going to turn on him and push him and his entire crew out of there. And they want to start with Stephen Miller.
oh yeah.
That's who they want. If they said if they can start with Miller, get his ass out of there, and then start hitting the rest of them. But yeah, they want to turn against him, get rid of him. They're losing too much money because of this dude, the reputation. Like Bissett, Steve or Scott Bissett, uh,
Yeah.
he's been wanting to get out of there since April, but he can't find a way to do it because his credibility is becoming shit, and he
Yeah,
knows
it
that
is shit.
after Trump, nobody's going to trust him anymore. He used to be world renowned, world trusted, and all of that. Now, I don't know, Scott.
And I gotta say, Scott, I don't like you. I think you're a weasel. I think you're a liar. I think you're a
Hmm.
kiss ass. But if you in fact did punch Elon Musk, you gotta let us know. That's gonna help your cred.
That 100%, yes. If he did do that, I would love to know that he did that.
And it could be
And
Stephen Miller. Aren't you surprised though? I mean, I felt like once he got elected, it would be short order where the Republicans said, okay, we squeezed enough out of you. That's all we can get. Let's kick you to the curb and actually do something. But they've stuck with this guy far longer than I expected they would.
who, Elon?
No, Trump.
Oh, you know what? I agree with you. I thought he would have been gone by now. I thought they would have planned something or had something in that project 2025 to just remove him and implant JD. That's what I originally thought. I thought
Yeah.
JD I thought they were going to pull a Joe Biden, move Joe out of the way and bring in Kamala, right? So I thought they were going to bring in JD, but so far he's still there. I will tell you this though. I saw a tweet the other day or yesterday by Elon Musk referencing the No Kings Day and saying that there should not be any kings, only man. So
Yeah.
they're back at it again.
The best sign I saw at the protest was here in Minnesota, and it was a sign, and it was in purple letters, and it said the only royalty we recognize, and they had Prince's glyph on there.
Goddamn right. But the thing is, um, they had kissed and made up, so we thought. And then
Oh
yesterday,
yeah.
Elon puts up, "Hey, there's no kings. They're only man." And I guess Trump didn't like that. And he also turned on Trucker Carlson. Did you hear that piece of it?
No.
Yeah. They asked him today. Trucker Carlson had said something to the effect of, "Hey, he needs to stick to the script." And then they asked him, "Well, what do you think about Tucker Carlson saying that you should da da da?" He's like, "Well, you know what? We don't care what Tucker has to say. If Tucker wants to speak, he should get him a TV show." And then he walks away.
Well, Tucker Carlson also said that Fox News was a dangerous propaganda machine too,
For
just
elderly
yesterday
people. Yeah, he did.
for elderly people. Yeah.
And what do you say? Just turn it up just a little bit more till you
Yeah.
get them to fall off their feet.
Well, when Donald Trump and Elon were going at it, it was the epitome of narcissists because they always want to one up the other one, and then they get out of control and they say shit they shouldn't say,
You got
and
to
then it
reel it
settles
back.
down. They reeled it back, And people said, "Well, I wish that would have gone longer." I go, just wait. It's going to happen again because Donald Trump does not forgive. He's going to want to show his dominance and he's
Hmm.
going to say some shit. Then Elon will say some shit and it will fucking heat up again. And that's good because obviously that made Donald Trump nervous because Elon knows some things that he doesn't want out. And maybe Donald knows some things that Elon doesn't want out. But we need that constant pounding on his ego. I was glad to see when Gavin Newsom came out and starts talking shit to him. Donald Trump took Gavin Newsom out of the garbage can and made him a potential candidate again for president because people
Hmm.
hated Gavin Newsom, and now that he's kicking Donald Trump's ass and doing it every day, people starting to love this guy again.
Yeah, JD Farmer and I talked about this the other day because we were on the fence about Newsom,
Yeah,
because he
me
did
too.
those interviews with Charlie Kirk and all of the other shit he was doing, and then saying he's going to not run as a Democrat anymore, and he's going to pull the mega voters. I'm sorry, MAGA voters, and then all of a sudden this happens, and he
Yeah.
turns the switch back the other way. Where I'm like, well, wait a minute. So I'm still kind of on the fence because if he can flip the switch that fast, he could do it again.
Yeah.
Uh, but right now, you know, I'm okay with him.
Somebody made a point about Gavin Newsom, and I have the problems I have with Gavin Newsom. He's too much of an establishment politician, and people have clearly pointed out by voting for Donald Trump, they do not like that. They
Right.
didn't like it because Hillary was establishment, and because Kamala was the vice president, and they presumed she was establishment. At least they tried to make her out to be that. Um, but somebody said, well, don't look at it like, we're going to get the best guy for the president. And I understand that. We got to find the guy who's got the ability and the strength to be a fighter, a street fighter.
Yes. Yep.
And then and I've always said, don't worry about who the candidate is as long as it's Democrat and they're reasonably minded. It may not be everything you want, but it is the first step to getting what you want. Because if you vote for this bullshit again, you'll never get what you want. So you
Ever.
got to take it step by step.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I think we should also work on term limits. Um, if I have to advocate for that, I would love to because
But
you
how
got
do we do
people,
that? Congress has to vote for that. They're not going to do that
and
for
they
themselves.
won't. They won't. No, and they should though. I mean, you got Pelosi. I heard she's going to run again. It's like Jesus Christ, give it up.
Yeah.
You got they're dying in there. They're literally dying and
Yeah.
falling asleep and falling down as they're talking. It's like, hey guys, just give it up. Bring some young, fresh meat in. Well, they tried that and they've already gotten rid of him. The new Democratic guy. I think he's down in Minnesota where you are. Um,
Um,
the head of the DNC, uh,
oh,
Johnson
yeah.
or
Well,
Roberts or something like that.
they got rid of him? No, they
Yeah.
didn't get rid of him. They got rid of David Hogg.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, I knew it was one of them.
They,
They got
yeah, the Minnesota guy is the chair of the DNC, and that's an official job. And he's kind of a fighter. I don't know much about him, but he's kind of a fighter, and he seems like a good choice. David Hogg was the vice chair, and they got mad at him because he wanted to primary some of these do nothing
yes.
elderly fucks, and the Democrats said, no, we don't want to do that. My thought is, if you watch what happened on November 5th,
Hmm.
why would you want to stay the same? I've got a rule in my life. If I do something and it doesn't work, I do something different. And that's
Right,
what
you
the
have to.
Democrats need to do.
Well, they tried, like you said, they got rid of David Hall over it,
Right.
which is dumb. Because he should have primaried some of them. I mean, we excuse me, we need some new blood in there. Either it's new blood or new ideas. Doesn't have to be young or old. Just we can't keep doing the same exact Democratic playbook over and over and over again because it's not working for us.
I mean, there are a few old white guys in the Democratic Party that are pretty solid. There's one guy I like a lot, and he's very smart and he doesn't mince his words, and that's Sheldon Whitehouse.
Yeah, I like Sheldon.
Sheldon knows the Constitution, knows the law, and asks the hard questions. I mean, he pissed off Lee Zeldin the other day because he
Hmm.
kept asking questions, and Zeldin tried to distract and divert. And White House did what you need to do. You need to put them in a corner and say, no, motherfucker, answer the question. But everybody lets all these Republicans off the hook. They say some crazy shit. Mike Johnson, Donald Trump, they say some crazy shit and they go, okay, next question. They
Right.
should say, no, motherfucker, back up what you just said.
Back it. Yeah, exactly. What
And nobody has the courage to do that.
we need a Democratic Josh Hawley, somebody of that vigor, but a
Yeah.
Democrat fighting the Republicans. But we don't have anybody like that. You know what I mean? We've I really hoped and thought that it would be Hakeem Jeffries, AOC, Jasmine, and what's that one lady with the red hair? Now she gets in some ass too, but I forget what her name is. But she
The
doesn't
red
do it
hair.
very. Yeah, she's in Congress. Um,
Okay. I'm trying to think of who she is. There are other people that are kind of do it. Eric
yep,
Swalwell kind of does it, but he's not as pugnacious. Jamie Rashkin does it.
yep.
She's not a, you can't be a tough guy politician. You got to be a fucking street fighting gang member at this point because that's what we're playing at.
Yeah, a sleazeball. Yeah,
Yeah.
you got to pull them out of the gutter so they can
And
come
that's where
fight.
Gavin might do the job because he's
Yeah,
kind of a sleazeball.
yeah. I mean, Gavin looks like he can turn the corner on you any second. So I think that's what we need. I don't know. Hopefully they're behind the scenes and they keep telling us, well, we can't jump at everything that they throw at us. We only got to swing for the fences. But I haven't seen them swing yet.
Well, you can tell me you can't do everything and swing for the fences, but here's what I can tell you. You can't win a fucking election. So do something different.
Do something and do it now. Like
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything. Everything we hear all day long is Trump, 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 Trump. And Bannon says, "Hey, we're just going to flood you and flood you and flood you with all this mis and disinformation until it fucks with your head." And you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
everybody's all jacked up. And then one day he's, I'm not going to give money to blue states, or I'm not going to have uh, FEMA go over here, or I'm gonna have this. It's just so much idiocy that's going on right now that doesn't make any sense to me. And Judge Judy says if it doesn't, she said if it doesn't make sense, it's not the truth.
Yeah, and she also says, "Don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining," which is essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
Um, um, but um, when I watch what these people are doing, I really worry that the Democrats really don't know how to enter this fight because that's what it is. It is a fight, and it's kind of like I don't know. We need kind of a gangster on our side. I'll give you an example. I live in Minnesota. We're Minnesota Vikings fans. We
Oh
hate the
yes.
fucking Green Bay Packers.
Can't
And there's
stand them.
nobody we hated more than Brett Favre. And I
Oh
still hate
yes.
Brett Favre.
To
But
this
Brett
day.
Favre played for us one season. Now he was our asshole. He was our gangster, and he had a good season. Now
Hmm.
since then, we found out some other things about Brett Favre, and he's a slimy piece of shit.
Down there in
But
Mississippi.
yeah, but
Hmm.
now we need somebody on our side that's willing to take off the gloves, get in the mud. That's always been my premise with what I do on Rational Boomer. I'm not a politician. I don't wield any great power, but I can found a lot of Republicans when they talk to me because
Hmm.
they expect the Democrats to be nice and civil and decent, and then
Yeah.
they come up to me
Shirt
and I
time.
call them a pussy ass bitch, and they don't know what to do with that.
Well, it
Oh,
shocks
he's
the
a
shit
dirty
out of
motherfucker. He's a dirty motherfucker.
but he's
And
just
and
telling you
and
the
it
truth.
and it goes from hating me to respecting me for doing it.
Right.
And that's kind of what we need. Certainly don't need me. People have said you should run for something. No, I'm not running for something. I'm a white guy. I'm the last motherfucker that should run for something.
Yeah, but you got to follow and they would listen to you. You remember that movie? It was Bernie Mac and Chris. The fuck is his name? I can say his name. Anyway, Chris was the
Chris Rock.
president. Chris Rock, and he was the president, head of state, and they were having the same situation. So he says, "All right, I've got to get my brother down here to help clean some of this shit up." So Bernie Mac was getting off the train, slapping everybody that he came across. So until he got to his brother, hey, tell me about your brother when he went slap. Tell me about your brother when he went. But we need somebody like Bernie Mac to come in and start uh, verbally slapping people around and get this shit out of the way.
I love Bernie Mac. I love his quote. I use it all the time. He comes out on stage in a rough front of a rough crowd. First thing he says to him, I ain't scared of you motherfuckers.
Not one
And
of
that's
them.
my and that's my attitude with Trump. Like, people say, well, you got to be careful. Careful of what,
I ain't
motherfucker? I
scared of you,
almost beat up
motherfucker.
an old man in Iowa. I'm a badass motherfucker.
Scared of none of them motherfuckers, Mike. Not one of them. Knowledge is power, right?
Yeah.
They look at me and they like, well, he's a black guy in his mid 50s, and he's kind of quiet. So they'll start talking politics to me, and I don't say much because I like to. The military told us to steal with our eyes, right? You just kind of sit back and you just watch the room and read the room. And then when I see them getting off the rails, here comes Trucker T. Terrence is gone at that point,
Yeah.
right? I turn Terrence off. Here comes Trucker T. And then they're like, wait a minute. Where do you get this shit from? How do you know this? Where do you get this? How do you know this? Well, I research. I don't just watch the news. I sit down and I listen. I listen to people like Boomer, TJ the plumber, and JD the farmer. I mean, you know what I mean? Will, who's a historian.
Yeah.
You surround yourself with intelligent people. And then I met Eric, right? Talking
Yeah.
to Eric is like talking to an encyclopedia, and
Yep.
nothing he's saying is false. So I surround myself with people like that. And then when they hear me speak, they're like, wait a minute, this guy's actually halfway intelligent, not
He
just a
knows what the fuck
dumbass.
he's talking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not just some dumbass.
That's
But
that's my superpower on this podcast. People think I'm brilliant. I just have a lot of people that are smarter than me on the show, and then I look brilliant.
hey, that's one way of doing it. Maybe I ought to start doing that. But yeah, no,
Yeah,
I just
absolutely.
I have been a history buff since I was little. Ever since Reagan I was in the sixth grade when Ronald Reagan got shot. And I remember asking Mr. Nader, why would they do that to our president? And he says, well, you're too young to understand. And that pissed me off. So from that point on, I says, I'm going to find out for myself. If they won't
Yeah.
tell me what's happening to our country, to our president, I'll learn everything I can myself. And that's when I start. So I was in the sixth grade when I started listening to politics.
Well, and when that assassination attempt, when you were sixth grade, you didn't know why they did it. 45 years later, you're thinking, yeah, that made sense.
Yeah. I was like, oh, he
I
could have
get
just
it
told me.
now.
Yeah, he could have just told me. Yeah, I would have got it. But back then, I was born in 69, so you're talking like 78, 79, somewhere in there. So they wasn't, trying to tell us anything back then. They didn't give two shits. Just go to class, hell.
I was I was a senior in high school in 1978, and I didn't give a fuck about politics. Didn't know anything about politics. All I cared about was beer, parties, and girls. That's all I fucking cared about. And make sure my car had gas in it.
Yes,
And it
because you
was
had to
50 cents a gallon then, so I was cool.
absolutely, yeah, because you had to get to the football game on Fridays.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's all
So
I cared about. I know I used to talk about politics when I was younger. Um, and I've admitted this, and I'm ashamed of it. But I was a dumb fucking kid, 20 years old. Well, the first president I voted for was Reagan, and the reason I voted for Reagan is because the economy and all this shit was going to hell with Jimmy Carter, who was a great
yeah,
president. And I don't know anything. I said, "Fuck Reagan. What do I care? What does mine count for?" In retrospect, that's one of the things I'm most ashamed of because
right.
Reagan is probably why we are where we are
Here we are
today.
today. Yeah, with this trickle down economics that didn't work. Yeah, but you tell some people, hey, that's the best policy ever. Well, no, I actually voted for both Bushes. When I
Did
was in the
you?
military. Yeah, because that was the way I grew up.
Yeah.
But then once I started, and then I voted for Clinton, and then I went for
Obama.
Obama and Biden, and then Harris. So
Yeah.
I made up
Yeah.
for my woes.
When Donald Trump was in his first term, I said there was a time when I thought um, George W. Bush was the dumbest president in history. I had to recall that now that Donald Trump was in office, and I said I hated George W. Bush, but I miss George W. Bush now that Donald Trump is in office. See, I've people say, why do you hate Donald Trump so much from the beginning? And I've said this before, because because of his personality, a malignant narcissist. And I had a father who was just the same way. I saw
Hmm.
all the behaviors, all the word patterns, all the things he was doing. I knew we were in trouble as soon as he got elected because I know the arc of a
Of
of a uh, of a malignant narcissist. It's successful for him, but it's incredibly damaging. And then
for
once
every,
they get to the top, they go down and they crash in a horrible fucking catastrophe
just crash
when
and
it's all
burn.
done. I'm
Yep.
surprised Donald Trump hasn't hit that point yet. I give him credit for being able to hold on as long as he has, because I thought that would come long ago.
Well, he can't fucking keep his eyes open, so it ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna be too much longer, Mike, because he's just every time you see him, he's nodding. Sleepy Joe, my ass. We got tired Don over there. He's always tired. And
Yeah.
I heard somebody say, well, he's fighting so many different battles. Of course he's tired. No, he's tired because he's old as fucking dirt. He's the oldest president we ever had.
But if he had been smart, he could have just, I mean, he's 78, 79 years old now. Fucker's got maybe 16, 15 minutes left, max.
I thought you were gonna say years.
No, 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 no. He don't have that many years. He is kind of a cockroach, though, so you never know.
You
Uh,
never
but
know with that
but
dude.
but the thing is, if I'm that old, wouldn't it make sense? Economy's going good. I'm the president. I get to do a lot of shit my way. Why don't I just coast? I won't piss anybody off. I'll just coast, ride this economy and just do what I got to do. But he has to go in and fuck it up every time. He can't go into any situation and say, let's just kind of balance this out and work it out. I got to go in. I liken them to 70s rock bands who go into a hotel and for no reason at all tear up the room. Why
Right.
would you do that?
What's the point? Because we're a rock band. That's what we're
Yeah.
supposed to do. I'm the
And
president.
that's
I'm
what
supposed to
Donald
be a
Trump
dick.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
I mean,
that dude's an ass clown.
I got to the point. I'm 65 years old. I'm certainly not rich, but my wife and I are comfortable. We have pensions and Social Security. We have enough. We pared everything down when we got older, and we just want to live life and be calm and not have a lot of stress and travel and do stuff like that. I'm
Right.
65. If I'm 78 years old, I don't want to do shit.
No,
I
I want to
just want to
watch
enjoy
TV.
the fruits of my labors, which he's got the fruits but no labor put in.
Right.
But he had a lot of money. He could just fucking coast and call it a day. And now he's going to go down in history as a fucking pariah.
Well, and I hope he does. I
Oh,
honestly
he
do,
will.
Mike. I hope he does. I hope nothing good comes out of this presidency. And I hope a book and a movie situation comes out where all the truth is exposed. Kind of like that Narcan series that they have about the drugs going back and forth to Tijuana and Mexico and all of that. They show how the government officials were involved and all of this shit, naming names. I hope that comes out for his presidency.
Did you hear that E. Jean Carroll's got a new book coming out?
No, did not.
Yeah.
Oh
And
shit.
and it's going to be about all the fucked up shit that went down in the trial and all the
Oh,
dealings with
oh.
Donald Trump shit. This is
Mm.
going to be entertaining.
I can't
He's
wait
just
for that
gone,
one.
defame me again, motherfucker.
Yep. I cannot wait. And he just lost that case where he does actually have to pay her. And I don't know how many more times he can appeal that shit.
And what is it, like $40 million?
Yeah. Yeah,
You know how
it's
many
up there.
watches he has to sell to make that $40 million?
He's
Jesus
got
Christ.
a lot of cell phones, tell you that.
Well, and there's going to come a point where he has to pay that 400 million too.
Yeah, he's got or Letitia James will take all of his assets.
Wouldn't that be hilarious?
That
And
would be
ain't nothing he
hilarious.
can do. It ain't nothing he can do about it.
No,
People forget about that stuff.
no, Letitia, I guarantee you she's waiting on the day. I bet you she's got a clock running
Yeah.
for that day that she doesn't get that security bond.
Well, and people always say, well, he has immunity, he can do anything, and that's not necessarily true.
Mm-mm.
He's broke so many laws. Elon's broken laws. Stephen Miller's broken laws. When this all comes to an end, and make no mistake, it will come to an end at some point, they always do. There's going to be some more investigations. I mean, God help these people if the Democrats get control of the House. they aren't going to accomplish anything anyway because Donald Trump will never sign off on anything the Democrats do. So you might as well just hammer these motherfuckers one
Yeah,
by one by
one
one.
by one. I guarantee you, Jack Smith is somewhere taking notes and getting his trial prepared, getting his case prepared for the next. I guarantee you that.
Well, I heard he's back at The Hague. I don't know if that's true, but I think he's back at The Hague, and Donald could end up there too if he lives long enough. That would be hilarious. Go
That would
try
be
to
awesome.
intimidate the people in The Hague.
No, they ain't going for it. They're not going for it. So,
Or try to delay that shit. Now, Donald Trump will have his day. Either one or two things will happen. He'll be kicked out and he will have to be, well, he'll probably try to get JD to pardon him for everything, but it won't matter because he's more than likely to keel over on stage, shit his pants, throw up on himself. That's what if some harm comes to Donald Trump, I'm hoping it's not an assassin or something like that because then he's a
just
martyr. I
just
want him
national.
to fucking fall on the stage and flip around like a fucking fish and embarrass himself. That's what I'm
Just
hoping for.
Yep, natural causes. Just all
Yeah.
natural. Whatever happens to him, hey, he tripped up the stairs and he shit himself. Whatever. Just as long as it's self-inflicted and that's it.
Or he gets convicted of something
Yep.
and has to go to jail and lives a long, healthy life. I would like that too.
With Bubba. Well, I don't know, but I don't think Bubba would want any of that. That's kind of
Uh,
no.
no, he's
Here,
definitely he's definitely not too pretty to go to prison.
no.
He's
I love that. Oh yes.
well,
So
we're coming to the end here, Trucker T. I want to thank you for coming on at short notice. I knew it would be fun show to talk to you about stuff because you know shit, and that's my criteria. Have smart people on the show, then I look good. So I'm glad you could
well,
make it.
no, hey, it was my honor. I didn't get a chance to study, but I still had a little bit back there
Oh
to
yeah.
where I was able to be myself. So, but no, anytime, brother. I absolutely love doing this. This is my passion. This is what I do. So,
Well, you're more than welcome on. Like I tell everybody, you're more than welcome on the show. And the way it goes is this: I'm not. I unless I'm in a weird situation, I'm not going to call you up and say, "Trucker T, can you please come on?" All you have to do, send me a text, say, "Mike, I want to come on." I say, "Well, you can do it tonight or Sunday or whatever," and you're more than welcome to do it. You're more than welcome back anytime. And I know the people will enjoy the show. And I would tell you this, especially with the YouTube, there'll be a lot of comments. So you may want to check out those comments because people will probably have questions for you.
got you.
And
Okay.
and before we go, how does somebody find you on TikTok or wherever else you're at?
Yeah, everywhere that I am, Blue Sky, TikTok, Clapper, all of those is just Trucker T. Just type in Trucker T and you'll see the flag behind it. And that's how you'll find me.
All right. And I would recommend that you check it out. I watch his stuff. That's how I sound so fucking smart. I listen to people like Trucker T. So check out Trucker T on all those locations. Those of you listening, thanks for spending the time. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.